We live in a culture that is deeply terrified of suffering. From the moment we experience a flicker of anxiety, sadness, or existential confusion, society rushes in with 1,000 different ways to medicate, distract, or positive think it away. Before you go, if you're looking for a simple way to reduce stress and find more inner peace, I have something for you. Check out the ebook, The SIM Method, 5 minutes a day for inner peace and mental clarity. It only takes 5 minutes a day and can help you build a calmer, clearer mind. The link is in the first pinned comment, and if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe to The Trauma of Being for more content like this. We have been conditioned to view emotional pain as a malfunction, a glitch in the system that needs to be patched immediately so we can get back to being productive, cheerful cogs in the machine. But when you're lying awake at 3 a.m., feeling an overwhelming sense of emptiness, or watching a life you spent years building suddenly crumble around you, standard platitudes fall flat. You begin to feel like you are failing at life, punished by the universe, or uniquely broken. But what if this agonizing period of your life isn't a mistake at all? What if the crisis you are currently enduring is actually the most intelligent, purposeful thing that has ever happened to you? The legendary Swiss psychiatrist Carl Jung dedicated his entire life to mapping the deepest, darkest corridors of the human psyche, and his conclusions about human suffering fly directly in the face of modern self-help. Jung believed that the soul never suffers pointlessly. When you fall into a state of deep depression, chronic anxiety, or an existential midlife crisis, Jung argued that this is not a sign that your life is ending. It is a sign that the false version of your life is finally being forced to die. Your unconscious mind has looked at the way you are currently living, the masks you are wearing, and the lies you are telling yourself to keep others happy, and it has staged a violent coup. The pain you are experiencing right now is actually the friction of your true, authentic self trying to break through a psychological shell that you have completely outgrown. If you try to simply numb this pain or fight your way back to the old you, you will only prolong the misery because the psyche never moves backward. It only moves forward. Jung famously suggested that we should not ask how to get rid of our suffering, but rather ask what it wants from us. What is it trying to build in the ruins of what it just destroyed? In this video, we are going to explore the profound Jungian principles that explain the exact hidden purpose behind your current trial. We will look at why your psychological masks are cracking, how your deepest shadows are demanding your attention, and how this current darkness is actually the chaotic, necessary labor pains of your true self being born. You are not being punished. You are being dismantled so that you can finally be put back together as the person you were always meant to become. Let's dive in. The persona is cracking, the death of the mask. Every single one of us enters adulthood by building an elaborate psychological armor that Carl Jung officially labeled as the persona. Derived from the Latin word for the masks worn by ancient actors in theatrical plays, the persona is the carefully curated version of yourself that you present to the outside world to secure love, safety, status, and acceptance. From your very earliest years, you quickly realized that being entirely raw, unfiltered, and honest did not always yield positive results. Instead, you learned to adapt. You observed what made your parents smile, what made your teachers praise you, and what allowed you to fit in with your peers. And you woven those survival traits together into a beautifully functional mask. This mask is not inherently evil or fake. It is a vital, necessary psychological tool that allows us to navigate the complexities of social life, maintain professional boundaries, and survive the demanding expectations of human society. The ultimate danger, however, lies in the fact that almost everyone eventually commits the ultimate psychological sin. We completely forget that we are wearing a mask, and we begin to genuinely believe that we are the persona. You become so deeply invested in being the successful professional, the perfectly dependable family member, the perpetually cheerful friend, or the unflinchingly strong protector that you completely detach from your messy, complex, and unpredictable inner reality. Jung warned that when your ego identifies entirely with the persona, you enter a state of profound psychological alienation, essentially living a life that belongs to society rather than to your own soul. You spend decades feeding this external image, pouring all your vital life force, time, and creative energy into maintaining a flawless facade, while the true, authentic core of your being is left starving in the dark, totally abandoned by your own conscious mind. But the human psyche is an incredibly intelligent, self-regulating ecosystem, and it will absolutely refuse to let you live a lie forever. When the gap between who you actually are in your deepest depths and the superficial mask you are presenting to the world becomes too wide, a severe psychological crisis is automatically triggered. This is the exact moment where the pain you are currently experiencing enters the frame. It is the terrifying sensation of your persona violently cracking right down the middle. Suddenly, the masks that used to fit you perfectly begin to feel suffocating, and incredibly heavy. The social circles that used to bring you comfort now feel utterly draining. The career goals that once kept you highly motivated suddenly feel completely hollow, and the polite, agreeable behaviors you used to default to now leave a bitter, resentful taste in your mouth. When this profound breakdown begins to happen, the immediate and natural human reaction is one of absolute panic and overwhelming terror. You look at your crumbling sense of identity, your sudden inability to care about the things you used to care about, and your growing detachment from your old life, and you assume that you are experiencing a catastrophic mental breakdown. Society reinforces this fear by telling you that you are losing your grip, or that you need to quickly fix yourself so you can return to your previous state of high-functioning productivity. You try desperately to glue the pieces of your cracked mask back together, forcing yourself to smile, working harder to achieve external validation, and attempting to resurrect the old you that everyone else loved and relied upon. But no matter how hard you fight to restore the status quo, the cracks only continue to grow deeper, wider, and more undeniable. What Jung wants you to understand with absolute clarity right now is that this agonizing collapse is not a tragedy. It is a supreme act of psychological mercy. The intense suffering, the existential dread, and the crushing anxiety you are experiencing are not signs that you are fundamentally broken. They are definitive proof that the false version of your life is finally being forced to die. The pain you feel is the intense friction of your true, authentic self, violently breaking through a rigid psychological shell that you have completely outgrown. If your persona did not crack, you would remain trapped inside that artificial cage for the rest of your days, living a superficial, pre-packaged existence and never discovering the immense depth of who you truly are underneath the societal conditioning. To truly heal and move forward, you must completely reframe how you view this internal demolition. You are not actually losing your mind. You are simply losing a highly sophisticated, outdated survival mechanism that has outlived its usefulness. The mask you built served its purpose excellently by protecting you during the fragile, formative stages of your development and helping you establish your footing in the world, but it was never intended to be your final destination. It was merely a temporary scaffolding, and now that the deeper structure of your true self is ready to be built, the scaffolding must be aggressively torn down. The current breakdown is the essential, unavoidable clearing of the land, making room for a far more authentic, resilient, and honest foundation to take its place. This profound transformation requires you to courageously face the terrifying question that most people spend their entire lives actively running away from. Who am I when I stop pretending? When you finally strip away the job title, the social status, the pleasing behavior, and the desire to make everyone else happy, what is actually left standing in the quiet room of your mind? Forcing yourself to confront this deep void is incredibly disorienting, because the persona allowed you to know exactly how to act and how to be perceived. Without it, you feel completely naked, exposed, and uncertain of your place in the universe. Yet it is precisely within this fertile, frightening space of radical uncertainty that the genuine journey of self-discovery and true psychological freedom actually begins. Jung observed that the people who suffer the most during these major life transitions are those who stubbornly refuse to let go of their masks. They cling to their fading youth, their old titles, and their outdated roles with a desperate, white-knuckled grip, viewing the natural evolution of their psyche as a mortal enemy to be defeated. By resisting the death of the mask, They successfully transform a temporary, necessary transition phase into a permanent state of chronic neurosis, depression, and bitterness. They become tragic ghosts of their former selves, desperately trying to play a role in a theatrical production that ended years ago, completely blind to the fact that life is calling them to step out of the theater and into reality. Therefore, the most profound thing you can do for your mental health right now is to stop fighting the destruction and actively allow the persona to shatter. Let go of the exhausting, impossible demand to always appear perfectly strong, perfectly put together, or entirely unbothered by the chaos around you. Allow yourself to be messy, to be deeply confused, and to explicitly admit that the way you have been living for the past several years is no longer working for your soul. By consciously surrendering to the death of the mask, you take the immense, terrifying power away from the crisis and you transform it into a conscious partnership with your own psychological growth. Ultimately, your current suffering has a beautiful, deeply revolutionary purpose. It is forcing you to trade a life of superficial perfection for a life of profound wholeness. It is rescuing you from the paralyzing numbness of a safe, compliant, and deeply unfulfilling existence. The dark night of the soul you are walking through right now is the chaotic, necessary labor pains of your true self being born into consciousness. You are not being punished by the universe, and you are not being left behind. You are being thoroughly dismantled so that you can finally be put back together as a completely integrated, authentic human being who no longer needs to hide behind a mask to be worthy of existence. Enantiodromia, the reversal of extremes. The second profound reason behind your current suffering lies in an ancient psychological law that Carl Jung brought back to light, a concept known as Enantiodromia. Derived from the philosophy of Heraclitus, this term literally means running counter to, or the reversal of extremes. Jung observed that the human psyche, much like the physical universe, operates on a strict principle of dynamic balance and compensation. Whenever any psychological force or behavioral pattern is pushed to an extreme over a long period, it builds an immense, invisible pressure within the unconscious mind. Eventually, the scales tip violently, and the psyche triggers a sudden, uncontrollable counter-movement, thrusting you into the exact opposite state of being. The profound crisis you are currently experiencing is not a random act of chaos, but the execution of this exact law, a massive automated correction designed to pull you back from a dangerous extreme. For years, you have likely been driving your life in one specific, highly unbalanced direction, completely blind to the toll it was taking on your inner world. You may have spent a decade being the ultimate rationalist, suppressing your emotions and intuition in order to be hyper-logical, efficient, and fiercely productive. Or perhaps you were the eternal people-pleaser, constantly sacrificing your own boundaries, desires, and voice to maintain artificial harmony and keep everyone else happy. In modern society, we praise these hyper-focused states. We glorify the relentless hustle, the emotional detachment, and the selfless compliance, treating them as badges of honor. But your unconscious mind does not care about societal praise or material success. It only cares about wholeness, and while your conscious ego was celebrating your lopsided achievements, your inner world was keeping a meticulous ledger of everything you were suppressing. Every time you forced yourself to work through extreme exhaustion, every time you swallowed your anger to keep the peace, and every time you dismissed your deepest creative longings as impractical, you were burying a piece of yourself alive. Jung emphasized that the unconscious is a reservoir of immense psychic energy, and you cannot simply repress vital aspects of your humanity without consequences. That buried energy does not dissipate, it accumulates in the dark, fermenting into a potent psychological counterforce. The more you push toward the extreme of pure logic, absolute control, or total selflessness, the larger and more volatile the opposing force became in your depths. The current breakdown you're experiencing is the exact moment that dam finally burst, allowing the repressed, unlived half of your life to flood your conscious reality. This is precisely why a psychological crisis often feels like a sudden, terrifying betrayal by your own mind and body. The hyperproductive entrepreneur suddenly wakes up one morning, completely paralyzed by a profound, debilitating depression that makes it impossible to even get out of bed. The fiercely independent protector unexpectedly finds themselves weeping uncontrollably, swamped by an intense wave of vulnerability and emotional fragility they cannot comprehend. The calm, endlessly patient partner suddenly explodes in a burst of devastating rage, burning down relationships they spent decades building. When this happens, it feels like your life is being utterly ruined from the inside out, leaving you wondering how you could possibly lose control so completely. But Jung wants you to understand that this violent reversal is actually an act of supreme psychological self-preservation. When the ego refuses to listen to the gentle whispers of fatigue, intuition, or resentment, the unconscious has no choice but to use a sledgehammer to get your attention. The debilitating burnout, the crushing anxiety, or the sudden loss of all motivation are not signs that you are malfunctioning. They are the psyche's emergency brake. Your mind is deliberately sabotaging your ability to continue moving in the wrong direction, physically and emotionally preventing you from doing any more damage to your soul. The breakdown is not an enemy to be conquered. It is a fierce, desperate intervention by your own nature to save you from your own conscious blindness. To heal this profound rift, you must stop looking at your symptoms as flaws that need to be aggressively eradicated so you can get back to your old lifestyle. If you approach this crisis with the exact same hyper-controlling, aggressive mindset that caused the imbalance in the first place, you will only prolong the suffering. The anxiety, the emptiness, and the sudden emotional volatility are demanding that you sit down and actively negotiate with the parts of yourself you have neglected for so long. If you have been over-intellectual, your psyche is forcing you down into the raw, messy world of deep feeling. If you have been hyper-responsible for everyone else, your crisis is forcing you into a state of temporary isolation where you have no choice but to finally look at your own neglected needs. This radical shift requires an immense amount of humility because it forces you to embrace the exact qualities you have spent your entire life judging, fearing, or looking down upon. The strong, fiercely independent individual must learn the grueling art of asking for help and admitting weakness. The rigid perfectionist must learn to tolerate chaos, mistakes, and the radical unpredictability of unscripted life. It is deeply humiliating for the ego to realize that it is no longer the absolute ruler of its own house, and that it must now make space for the very things it once deemed useless or unacceptable. Yet, this exact humiliation is the necessary price of admission for entering into a state of true psychological maturity and inner peace. When you look at your trial through the lens of Enantiodromia, the hidden purpose of your current pain becomes beautifully and undeniably clear. You are being aggressively pulled backward so that you can gather the pieces of yourself that you dropped along the way. A complete, fully realized human being cannot exist solely in the light of productivity, logic, and pleasant compliance. We require the dark, grounding forces of rest, deep emotion, fierce boundaries, and instinctual truth. The crisis is forcefully expanding your internal territory, smashing the narrow, suffocating boundaries of who you thought you were, and demanding that you become large enough to hold all of your paradoxes. Jung observed that those who successfully navigate this terrifying reversal emerge into the second half of their lives with an unshakable, magnetic sense of wholeness. They are no longer fragile caricatures of perfection. They are deeply grounded, resilient human beings who are no longer afraid of their own depths. They can work hard without destroying their bodies. They can love deeply without losing their boundaries, and they can face the storms of life with a profound, quiet stability. They understand that the darkness they endured was not a black hole meant to swallow them, but a necessary temporary eclipse designed to reveal the full spectrum of their inner universe. Therefore, do not despair over the fact that your old life has ground to a sudden, painful halt, and do not waste your remaining energy trying to force yourself back into an unsustainable mold. Honor the reversal that is taking place within you right now, and trust the innate wisdom of the psychological tides. Allow the productivity to fade into rest, allow the rigid control to dissolve into feeling, and allow the false harmony to break so that authentic truth can emerge. You are not losing your identity. You are simply being brought back to the center, thoroughly dismantled by the law of balance, so that you can finally live a life that is genuinely whole. Meeting the shadow in the dark. The third and perhaps most confronting reason behind your current trial is that you have arrived at the inevitable psychological crossroads where you must finally meet your shadow. In Carl Jung's map of the psyche, the shadow represents the hidden, repressed, and unloved basement of your mind, the repository for every instinct, desire, trauma, and personality trait that you deemed unacceptable during your upbringing. From early childhood, you quickly learned that exhibiting certain behaviors like raw anger, intense jealousy, deep vulnerability, or fierce ambition resulted in rejection or disapproval from those you depended on for survival. To preserve your belonging, you systematically split these traits away from your conscious identity and buried them deep within the unconscious, creating an idealized version of yourself for public consumption while completely abandoning your darkest corners. The fundamental error most people make is believing that once something is repressed, it ceases to exist or influence their reality. Jung warned that the shadow is not a static graveyard of dead memories, but a highly dynamic, living counterweight that actively breathes, grows, and exerts an immense gravitational pull over your daily life. When you refuse to consciously acknowledge your darker impulses, they do not simply vanish. Instead, they operate from the shadows, dictating your choices, sabotage your relationships, and manifest as chronic anxiety or a pervasive, unexplainable sense of inner emptiness. Jung famously stated that, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. The agonizing crisis you are enduring right now is the moment your shadow has grown too large to remain hidden, violently breaking through the floorboards to demand your absolute attention. When a crisis strips away your usual defenses, distraction mechanisms, and external coping strategies, the immediate result is a terrifying confrontation with this inner darkness. Suddenly, you are forced to feel the raw, untamed emotions you spent decades trying to bypass. Deep-seated resentment toward people you love, a paralyzing fear of failure, hidden addictions, or an intense, boiling anger at the life you have built. This confrontation is profoundly disorienting because it completely shatters your self-image as a perfectly good, stable, and righteous person. You look into the mirror of your current suffering and see impulses, weaknesses, and chaotic desires that you find utterly repulsive, leaving you with a crushing sense of guilt, shame, and psychological nakedness. The modern response to this dark night of the soul is to treat these intrusive shadow elements as toxic malfunctions that need to be aggressively expelled, purified, or positive thought out of existence. We are bombarded with self-help advice that commands us to focus exclusively on the light, cultivate high vibrational thoughts, and cut out any form of negativity. But Jung stood firmly against this superficial approach, asserting that true psychological enlightenment is never achieved by imagining figures of light or pretending to be perfect. Real transformation can only happen by courageously making the darkness conscious, walking directly into the fire of your own hidden nature, and discovering the profound, unpolished truth of who you are when all your polite societal conditioning is stripped away. What your current suffering is trying to teach you is that your shadow is not a malicious monster out to destroy your life, but a deeply wounded, starving part of your own soul that is desperate to come home. The traits locked within your shadow, your anger, your untamed passion, your raw vulnerability, your boundaries, are not inherently evil. They are merely primitive and uneducated because they have been starved of the light of your conscious awareness for so long. When you repress your capacity for anger, you also accidentally repress your capacity to stand up for yourself and say a definitive no to people who exploit you. When you lock away your vulnerability to appear strong, you simultaneously lock away your capacity to experience genuine, deep, and unshakable intimacy with another human being. The current breakdown you are experiencing is forcing you to look at these buried pieces because you can no longer survive without them. The exhaustion and emptiness you feel are a direct result of the immense psychic energy it takes to keep the basement door slammed shut against your own nature. Your psyche has intentionally engineered this crisis to exhaust your ego, leaving you too tired to keep fighting yourself, so that you finally have no choice but to open the door, sit down in the dark, and listen to what your repressed self has to say. The suffering will not lift until you stop treating your darkness as an enemy and begin treating it as an estranged, essential part of your family that must be reintegrated into your whole being. This process of shadow integration requires an unprecedented level of radical honesty and moral courage that very few people are actually willing to cultivate. It forces you to drop the comfortable role of the innocent victim and look directly at how your own hidden manipulations, unacknowledged envies, and buried traumas have actively contributed to the chaos of your current situation. You must learn to tolerate the profound discomfort of realizing that you are capable of the very same darkness, selfishness, and flaws that you so readily judge and condemn in the people around you. Yet it is precisely within this excruciatingly honest realization that your true psychological liberation and a deep, authentic compassion for yourself and others are born. Jung observed that those who run away from this confrontation, choosing instead to project their shadow onto the outside world, become trapped in a tragic loop of perpetual bitterness and neurosis. They look at their partners, their bosses, or society at large and see nothing but malice and persecution, completely blind to the fact that they are merely seeing the unacknowledged reflections of their own internal chaos thrown back at them. By refusing to own their darkness, they remain eternally fragile, constantly threatened by the external world, and forever dependent on maintaining an increasingly brittle facade of artificial goodness that leaves them completely disconnected from reality. Therefore, the most profound and revolutionary thing you can do for your healing right now is to stop running from the darkness of your current trial and actively lean into it. When the anxiety spikes, when the old anger flares up, or when the deep grief washes over you, do not rush to medicate it or distract yourself with mindless consumption. Sit quietly with the discomfort, breathe into the tension, and ask the shadow the ultimate Jungian question. What vital piece of myself have I abandoned? And what do you need from me to become whole? By meeting your darkness with curiosity and compassion rather than judgment and fear, you begin the sacred alchemical process of transforming your hidden pain into raw psychological power. Ultimately, your current suffering has a beautiful, deeply redemptive purpose. It is rescuing you from the paralyzing trap of superficial perfection and guiding you toward the immense freedom of true wholeness. You are being thoroughly dismantled by your own psyche so that you can gather the scattered, discarded fragments of your soul that you dropped along the path of trying to please the world. The dark valley you are walking through right now is not a punishment from a cruel universe, but a mandatory psychological pilgrimage. You cannot become a fully realized, integrated human being without descending into your own dark underworld, facing your shadow, and claiming the hidden gold that has been waiting for you in the dark all along. The midlife transition and the shift to inwardness. The fourth reason your life feels like it is unraveling. Before you go, if you're looking for a simple way to reduce stress and find more inner peace, I have something for you. Check out the ebook, The SIM Method. 5 minutes a day for inner peace and mental clarity. It only takes 5 minutes a day and can help you build a calmer, clearer mind. The link is in the first pinned comment, and if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe to The Trauma of Being for more content like this. Is that you have reached a critical psychological boundary line that Carl Jung identified as the transition into the second half of life. Although we often call this a midlife crisis, Jung observed that this profound shift is not strictly tied to your physical age. It can be violently triggered at 25, 40, or 60. It is a fundamental, structural turning point where the psychological roadmap you use to navigate the world completely expires. Up until this exact moment, your life has been heavily directed outward, focused on building your identity, establishing a career, finding a partner, making money, and satisfying the heavy expectations of your family and society. This external focus is a necessary stage of human development, but it was never meant to be the final destination for your soul. During this first phase of existence, your conscious ego mistakenly believes that happiness and security are mathematical equations solved by external achievements. You tell yourself that once you reach a certain income bracket, marry the right person, buy the perfect home, or achieve a specific title, the underlying anxiety of being alive will finally dissolve. You pour an immense amount of vital life force, late-night hustle, and emotional sacrifice into climbing these societal mountains, driven by the absolute certainty that something beautiful is waiting for you at the peak. But the profound tragedy, and the ultimate catalyst for your current crisis, is that you eventually reach the summit, look around, and find yourself completely blindsided by a crushing, radioactive wave of existential emptiness. This is the exact point where the agonizing crisis begins. You look at a life that appears objectively successful, comfortable, or stable from the outside, but on the inside, it feels entirely dead, hollow, and meaningless. You begin to feel a suffocating sense of entrapment within the very life you spent years fighting to create, leaving you with an intense guilt because you feel like you should be deeply grateful for what you have. You try to fix this creeping numbness by using your old external strategies, working harder, buying new things, changing your environment, or seeking new relationships, but none of it works anymore. The old rewards have completely lost their flavor. The old goals no longer spark any motivation, and the psychological fuel that used to propel you forward has dried up entirely. When this happens, you naturally panic, assuming that you are experiencing a severe depressive episode or that your brain is malfunctioning. You look around at a society that glorifies eternal youth, endless external expansion, and perpetual outward achievement, and you feel like a broken machine that can no longer keep pace with the world. But Jung wants you to understand that this agonizing loss of motivation is not a sickness. It is a profound, necessary, evolutionary leap. The emptiness you feel is the voice of your psyche, announcing that the first half of your life is officially over, and that the external world no longer has the power to feed your soul. The old map is not broken. It has simply guided you as far as it can, and it cannot navigate the new inward terrain that lies ahead. Jung taught that while the first half of life is dedicated to socialization and external expansion, the second half demands radical introversion and a deep shift toward inwardness. Your psyche is aggressively withdrawing its energy from the outside world, from your career, and from your social identity, and forcing that energy back down into your inner world. The deep anxiety and disorientation you are experiencing are the direct result of your ego trying to fight this inward tide, desperately pulling outward while your soul is forcefully dragging you down into the depths. The crisis will not resolve until you stop looking out the window for answers and finally learn to look directly into the mirror of your own deeper mind. This profound transition requires you to face the terrifying reality that the metrics of success you used in the past are completely useless for the journey ahead. In the outer world, success is measured by accumulation, control, visibility, and perfection. In the inner world, success is measured by surrender, depth, integration, and authenticity. You are being asked to transition from a life of frantic doing to a life of conscious being. This is an incredibly difficult shift for the modern ego to accept because it feels like a form of death, a loss of control, a loss of ambition, and a descent into obscurity. Yet it is precisely within this quiet internal space that you discover the rich, unshakable meaning that no external achievement could ever provide. If you stubbornly refuse to make this shift, choosing instead to cling to your external masks and outdated ambitions with a white-knuckled grip, your suffering will become permanent. Jung noted that those who try to carry the law of the morning into the afternoon of life will inevitably suffer a severe psychological shipwreck, becoming bitter, fragile caricatures of their former selves. They spend their remaining years desperately chasing the ghosts of their youth or accumulating more material things, completely blind to the fact that their inner hunger cannot be satisfied by outer food. By resisting the natural inward turn of the psyche, they turn a beautiful, necessary evolution into a chronic, agonizing neurosis. Therefore, the most courageous thing you can do for yourself right now is to stop fighting the stillness and honor the inward pull of your current crisis. Allow the external ambitions to temporarily fade, allow the social calendars to empty out, and step back from the exhausting race for validation. Accept that you are entering a sacred period of psychological winter, a time where the leaves must fall and the energy must go deep into the roots, where no one else can see it. Use this time of forced isolation to explore the vast, neglected landscape of your own thoughts, your buried creativity, and the deep existential questions you have been running from for decades. When you reframe your suffering through this Jungian lens, you realize that your current crisis is not a punishment, but a radical act of liberation. Your soul is actively rescuing you from the exhausting trap of living a life that is wide but incredibly shallow, forcing you to trade a superficial perfection for a profound, unshakable depth. The disorientation you feel is simply the feeling of your old outer-focused ego losing its grip, so that your true, inner-guided self can finally take the wheel. You are not losing your way in the dark. You are being forcefully guided home to yourself, stepping across the threshold into a life of genuine internal authority and lasting peace. Ultimately, your current pain has a beautiful, revolutionary purpose. It is forcing you to grow up psychologically and discover who you are independent of what you produce, what you own, or what others think of you. The dark night of the soul you are walking through right now is the chaotic, necessary bridge between the life society wanted you to live and the life your soul is demanding you live. Do not fear the collapse of your old world, and do not grieve the loss of your old motivations. Allow the outer structures to crumble, trust the profound wisdom of the inward tide, and walk forward into the darkness, knowing that the gold you have been searching for outside was buried within you all along. Individuation, the ultimate goal of your pain. The fifth reason your life has been turned entirely upside down is that you have been forcefully drafted into the grueling, magnificent process that Carl Jung termed individuation. Individuation is the ultimate crowning concept of Jungian psychology. It is the lifelong psychological journey of becoming who you truly, uniquely are, completely independent of the conditioning of your parents, the expectations of your culture, and the suffocating pressures of your social circles. It is the sacred process of integrating your conscious mind with your vast unconscious depths, bringing together your light and your darkness, your strengths and your vulnerabilities into one magnificent, unbroken whole. But what Jung made absolutely clear, and what you are feeling in your bones right now, is that individuation is never a peaceful, gentle, or comfortable process. It is a path that is invariably paved with intense friction, profound isolation, and psychological fire. Modern spirituality and the mainstream self-help industry have deceptively packaged personal growth as a pleasant, linear journey of self-care, manifestation, and peaceful awakenings. They try to convince you that if you just think positively enough, align your chakras, or follow a simple routine, you can effortlessly glide into your highest potential without ever having to suffer. Jung completely rejected this superficial illusion, understanding that the human ego is incredibly stubborn, rigid, and deeply terrified of change. The ego loves comfort, safety, and predictability, and it will willingly stay trapped inside a small, suffocating, and completely unfulfilling life just because it is familiar. Therefore, true psychological transformation can never happen through gentle persuasion. It requires a massive, destabilizing explosion that shatters your old reality and forces you to grow. The intense suffering, the crushing anxiety, and the terrifying disorientation you are enduring right now are the exact labor pains of your true self being born into consciousness. You are not experiencing a random, meaningless tragedy, and you are not being punished by a cruel universe. You are being customized by life itself. Your psyche has deliberately engineered this profound crisis because the old version of you, the old ways of thinking, and the old patterns of behavior were completely incapable of holding the vast depth of who you are meant to become. The breakdown is the necessary, violent cracking of the outer eggshell so that the living creature inside can finally step out into the real world. If your life did not break down in this exact way, you would have remained safely asleep in your comfort zone forever, living a fraction of your potential and dying without ever knowing who you truly were underneath your societal programming. To truly understand the purpose of your pain through the lens of individuation, you must completely alter how you view the concept of wholeness. Wholeness does not mean achieving a state of flawless perfection, where you never feel sad, angry, or confused. That is an artificial, sterile illusion. Wholeness means completeness. It means having the courage to claim every single room in the mansion of your own mind, including the dark, messy basements and the forgotten, dusty attics. The current crisis is systematically dragging you through these abandoned parts of yourself, forcing you to acknowledge your deepest fears, your unhealed childhood wounds, and your hidden desires. It is a violent reclamation project, demanding that you stop slicing yourself into acceptable and unacceptable pieces just to make the outside world comfortable. This profound journey toward individuation requires you to endure a period of deep, existential isolation that can feel incredibly lonely and overwhelming. As you begin to question the values you were raised with, the lifestyle you were told to chase, and the roles you have been playing, you will naturally feel a growing gap between yourself and the people around you. The friends, family members, and colleagues who fell in love with your false people-pleasing persona may become confused, defensive, or even angry as that mask continues to crack. You might feel a terrifying sense of homelessness, as if you no longer belong to your past, but you cannot yet see where your future is taking you. Jung wants you to hold fast in this lonely void, because this precise isolation is what severs the invisible umbilical cord of social conformity, forcing you to develop your own internal backbone. If you attempt to bypass this painful stage by running back to your old dependencies, or if you rush to find immediate comfort in another distraction, you will actively abort your own development. The people who suffer the most chronic, agonizing neurosis are those who fight against their own individuation, trying desperately to remain small, safe children in a world that is demanding they become psychologically mature adults. They view the natural friction of life as an enemy, completely blind to the fact that without friction, a diamond can never be polished. By resisting the call to step into their unique truth, they trade the temporary, meaningful pain of growth for the permanent, numbing misery of a wasted life. Therefore, the most revolutionary thing you can do for your mental health right now is to stop looking at your current trial as a mistake and start treating it as a sacred initiation. Look at the specific nature of your suffering, the exact fears that keep you awake, the specific relationships that are crumbling, the unique failures you are facing, and realize that this pain has been perfectly, exquisitely tailored for your exact psychological needs. A generic, easy life could never give you the specific muscles you need to fulfill your unique destiny. The crisis is aggressively burning away your dependencies, your fragile validations, and your need for external approval, leaving behind only that which is genuinely, unshakably true about you. When you consciously choose to cooperate with the process of individuation, the entire atmosphere of your suffering undergoes a radical transformation. The pain does not immediately vanish, but it is instantly infused with an overwhelming sense of profound purpose. You no longer see yourself as a helpless victim of tragic circumstances, but as a courageous explorer, mapping the deepest wilderness of the human soul. You begin to realize that the universe is not happening to you, it is happening for you, using the raw, heavy hammer of crisis to forge a character of immense depth, resilience, and unshakable internal authority. Jung observed that the individuals who have the courage to walk all the way through this alchemical fire emerge into the world as completely transformed, magnetic beings. They are no longer easily shaken by the opinions of the crowd. They are no longer dependent on external titles for their sense of worth, and they possess a rare, quiet stability that commands respect without ever needing to demand it. They have integrated their light and their shadow. They have made peace with their past, and they move through life with a profound, authentic presence that acts as a guiding light for everyone around them. They are individuals in the truest sense of the word, unrepeatable, original masterpieces of nature. Trust the profound architectural intelligence of your own mind as it dismantles your old life piece by piece. Do not grieve the loss of the safe, predictable illusions that are currently turning to ash around you, and do not fear the immense darkness of the unknown path ahead. The fire you are sitting in right now is not meant to destroy you. It is only meant to burn away everything that is false, everything that is borrowed, and everything that is dead within you. Stand completely still in the center of the storm, breathe deeply into the discomfort, and allow the law of individuation to finish its magnificent necessary work of bringing your true self to life. Neurosis as a substitute for legitimate suffering. The sixth reason you find yourself trapped in a seemingly endless cycle of mental torment is a profound truth that lies at the very heart of Jungian therapy. Your chronic anxiety, your paralyzing stuckness, and your repetitive emotional loops are actually a neurosis designed to protect you from a much harder truth. Carl Jung formulated an incredibly radical definition of neurosis when he stated that it is always a substitute for legitimate suffering. What he meant by this is that the human ego is so deeply terrified of facing the raw, terrifying realities of life, such as an unhappy marriage, a dead-end career, an unhealed trauma, or the painful necessity of radical change, that it will actively manufacture a complex screen of emotional symptoms to distract itself. In essence, your mind would rather obsess over an abstract, uncontrollable sense of dread than face the concrete, painful decisions you actually need to make. When you look at your current life through this specific lens, the true nature of your suffering undergoes a jarring and deeply uncomfortable shift. For months or perhaps even years, you may have viewed your anxiety, your lack of motivation, or your deep existential numbness as a random, unfortunate illness that mysteriously fell upon you from the outside. You treat it as an unwanted invader, running from doctor to doctor, book to book, trying to find a magical cure that will restore your peace of mind without requiring you to change a single thing about your external reality. But Jung's perspective forces you to confront a much deeper, more challenging question. What exact reality is this neurosis successfully preventing you from facing? Your symptoms are not a random malfunction. They are a highly sophisticated smokescreen created by your own subconscious to keep you from doing the difficult work of growing up. Consider the immense psychological energy it takes to maintain a neurosis. When you are trapped in a loop of constant worry, overthinking, or paralyzing self-doubt, your entire focus is entirely consumed by your internal drama. While this state is undeniably painful and deeply exhausting, it offers the ego a hidden, highly seductive benefit. It gives you a perfectly valid excuse to remain completely passive. As long as you believe you are too sick, too anxious, or too broken to take action, you never have to take the terrifying risk of failing. You never have to have that brutally honest conversation with your partner, and you never have to leave the soul-crushing comfort of a secure but deadening job. You successfully trade the sharp, temporary pain of a real-world confrontation for the dull, chronic, and predictable misery of staying permanently stuck. Jung distinguished between two very different types of pain in the human experience: neurosis, which he considered a form of illegitimate, wasted suffering, and the legitimate suffering that is an unavoidable, necessary part of being a conscious human being. Legitimate suffering is the clean, sharp pain of growth. It is the grief of letting go of a relationship that no longer serves you, the terror of stepping into the unknown to pursue your true calling, or the heavy burden of taking absolute responsibility for your own happiness. This kind of pain has a clear trajectory. It moves you forward, cleanses your perspective, and leaves you stronger and wiser on the other side. Neurosis, on the other hand, is a stagnant, muddy swamp. It is a form of suffering that leads absolutely nowhere, repeating the exact same loops day after day, keeping you safely insulated from the real world while slowly starving your soul. The profound crisis you are currently enduring is the moment this sophisticated defense mechanism has completely collapsed under its own weight. The anxiety and the emptiness have grown so loud, so intrusive, and so thoroughly unbearable that they are no longer working as an effective distraction. Your subconscious mind has realized that your ego is willingly choosing to rot away in a safe, compliant prison, and it has decided to turn up the emotional heat until the walls of that prison melt down. The suffering will not leave you right now, because you are still desperately trying to bypass the actual lesson. You are trying to positive think your way out of a situation that requires a major, courageous, and systemic overhaul of how you live your life. To break free from this paralyzing trap, you must cultivate the immense moral courage required to strip away the smokescreen and look directly at the underlying truth. You must stop asking how to fix your anxiety and start asking what your anxiety is currently allowing you to avoid. Forcing yourself to look into this mirror is incredibly disorienting because it requires you to drop the comfortable, blameless role of the helpless victim and explicitly admit that you have been actively complicit in your own stagnation. You have to admit that you chose the safety of the cage over the freedom of the wilderness, and that your current mental torment is the direct price you are paying for that betrayal of your own potential. This radical shift in perspective requires you to make a conscious, definitive choice between the two types of suffering. You can choose to continue clinging to your neurosis, spending the next decade spinning in the same exhausting circles of worry, self-pity, and passive stagnation, safely protected from the risks of real life, but completely dead inside. Or you can choose to step forward and embrace the clean, legitimate suffering of transformation. You can choose to face the terrifying uncertainty of the unknown, endure the painful dismantling of your illusions, and make the hard choices that your soul has been begging you to make for years. One form of pain keeps you a child forever. The other form of pain is the exact crucible that turns you into a psychologically mature adult. Jung observed that the moment a patient stopped fighting their symptoms and instead chose to face the legitimate suffering they had been running from, their neurosis dissolved with astonishing speed. The chronic anxiety vanishes not because it was magically cured, but because it is no longer needed. Its job is done. The psychic energy that was previously locked up in maintaining the elaborate smokescreen is instantly released, flooding your system with a sudden, overwhelming wave of raw vitality, creativity, and purposeful drive. You realize that the monster you were running from was not nearly as terrifying as the exhausting act of running away itself. Therefore, the most profound thing you can do for your healing right now is to stop fighting your current crisis and allow it to push you to the breaking point where you finally tell yourself the absolute truth. Look at the specific areas of your life where you feel the most stuck, the most resentful, and the most anxious, and identify the difficult action you have been desperately avoiding. Stop waiting for the fear to completely disappear before you move forward. The fear will only dissolve once you have the courage to cross the threshold, lean directly into the clean, necessary pain of growth, knowing that on the other side of that confrontation lies the vibrant, authentic life you were meant to live. Ultimately, your current suffering has a beautiful, deeply liberating purpose. It is making it absolutely impossible for you to continue living a small, false, and cowardly existence. Your own mind is fiercely refusing to let you settle for a half-life of safe compromise and superficial comfort. The dark, agonizing night you are walking through right now is the chaotic, necessary transition where you finally stop running from reality and start standing firmly within it. Do not fear the sharp pain of the decisions that lie ahead, and do not grieve the comfort you must leave behind. Trust the fierce intelligence of your own psyche. Choose the noble path of legitimate suffering, and allow the fire of change to forge you into a person of genuine power, integrity, and lasting freedom. The Wounded Healer and Alchemical Gold. The seventh and final reason your life has been cast into this deep crucible is that your soul is preparing you for the archetype of the wounded healer. Carl Jung was profoundly fascinated by the ancient medieval art of alchemy, recognizing that the alchemists were not merely trying to turn physical lead into material gold, but were unknowingly projecting the deeper processes of human psychological transformation onto their chemical experiments. In the alchemical tradition, the journey always begins with the nigredo, or the blackness, a state of utter decay, chaos, and separation where the raw material must be completely broken down and dissolved. Jung understood that human beings must endure their own psychic nigredo if they ever hope to extract the ultimate gold of wisdom, empathy, and spiritual depth. The agonizing fragmentation you're experiencing right now is the necessary dissolution of your psychological lead, preparing you to find the medicine hidden inside your own poison. Throughout your current trial, you have likely felt entirely useless, weak, and disqualified from helping anyone else because you are struggling so deeply just to keep your own head above water. We live in a perfection-obsessed society that tells us that only the unblemished, the perpetually successful, and the entirely unbroken are fit to lead, teach, or inspire others. But Jung completely inverted this concept through his formulation of the wounded healer archetype, the profound reality that a person's ultimate therapeutic power deep wisdom, and capacity to guide others do not come from their pristine perfections, but directly from the scars of their own survived catastrophes. It is precisely because you have walked through the darkest valley of the human mind, faced your own madness, and felt the crushing weight of existential despair that you possess a rare, unshakable authority that can never be learned from a textbook. Consider the profound difference between a person who offers advice from a place of theoretical knowledge and someone who speaks from the raw authority of lived experience. When you are suffering, standard platitudes and superficial self-help slogans feel like an insult to your pain. You do not need a flawless instructor who has never known darkness. You need a guide who can look directly into your eyes and communicate, without speaking a word, that they have been exactly where you were standing and that they survived the fire. Your current crisis is aggressively stripping away your shallow perfections so that you can develop an immense, bottomless capacity for genuine empathy and compassion. You are being forced to navigate a terrifying forest so that in the future you can serve as a steady, reliable mapmaker for those who inevitably find themselves lost in the very same woods. This alchemical transformation of your pain requires a radical, courageous shift in how you view the nature of your wounds. Instead of looking at your scars as definitive proof of your permanent brokenness, shame, or failure, you must learn to view them as the exact entry points where your authentic soul finally breaks through into the world. In the ancient Japanese art of kintsugi, broken pottery is meticulously repaired using a lacquer heavily dusted with pure, shimmering gold, making the repaired fractures the most beautiful, prominent, and valuable parts of the entire vessel. Your current trial is the violent fracturing of your psychological clay, and the conscious work you do to heal, understand, and integrate this pain is the gold that will fill the cracks. You will not emerge from this crisis merely restored to your old self. You will emerge infinitely more beautiful, resilient, and uniquely valuable to the world around you. Jung observed that the darkest, most agonizing aspect of your current suffering, the specific fear that paralyzes you, the precise betrayal that broke you, or the exact nature of your depression, is always the precise location where your ultimate life's purpose and psychological gold reside. The psyche does not scatter its treasures randomly. It buries them directly underneath the heavy, terrifying boulders of your deepest complexes and greatest traumas. If you spend your entire life running away from your pain, trying desperately to maintain a superficial facade of absolute safety and comfort, you will completely miss the hidden treasure that your life was meant to discover. The suffering will not lift until you stop begging for a generic, painless life and finally summon the courage to dig straight down into the exact site of your wreckage to extract the unpolished wisdom waiting for you in the dark. This profound realization requires you to completely drop the exhausting, impossible burden of trying to appear perfectly healed, perfectly strong, or entirely unbothered by the storms of existence. True wholeness allows you to be deeply wounded and immensely powerful at the exact same time. By choosing to openly own your vulnerability, honor your ongoing struggle, and stop hiding your scars from the world, you strip the crisis of its ability to make you feel ashamed or isolated. You begin to realize that your pain is not a private, pathetic defect, but a sacred thread that connects you deeply to the collective suffering of all human beings. The moment you transform your private torment into a universal bridge of shared humanity, your neurosis instantly dissolves, and your true alchemical work as a conscious, integrated being finally begins. If you stubbornly refuse to engage in this alchemical work, choosing instead to remain bitter, resentful, and locked in the identity of the eternal victim, your wounds will inevitably sour into an emotional poison. Unhealed healers become the most destructive forces in relationships, unconsciously projecting their unacknowledged pain, envy, and unresolved shadows onto everyone they cross paths with. They use their suffering as a heavy weapon to manipulate others, demand unearned exceptions, and justify their own stagnant behaviors, turning a necessary temporary transition phase into a permanent state of psychological rot. By resisting the call to turn their lead into gold, they sentence themselves to a lifetime of hollow resentment, forever blind to the fact that they are starving within arm's reach of their own medicine. Therefore, the most profound and revolutionary act of self-love you can perform right now is to actively look at your current suffering and demand its alchemical gold. Ask yourself how this intense pressure can be used to expand your heart, deepen your understanding, and sharpen your unique voice. Allow the heat of this crisis to melt away your superficial judgments, your rigid intolerances, and your fragile vanities, leaving behind only the pure, unadulterated essence of your true humanity. Stand firmly in the center of the alchemical kiln. Breathe into the white-hot intensity of the transformation, and trust that you are not being reduced to worthless ash, but are being thoroughly refined into a vessel capable of holding an immense, radiant light. Ultimately, your current suffering has a beautiful, deeply sacred, and evolutionary purpose. It is initiating you into the noble lineage of the wounded healer. Your own psyche has fiercely refused to let you live a small, selfish, and superficial existence that offers nothing of lasting value to the human family. The dark, agonizing night you are walking through right now is the chaotic, necessary preparation for a life of profound, authentic service and genuine internal authority. You are not being broken by a cruel universe, and you are not being left to rot in the dark. You are being thoroughly dismantled so that your scars can eventually become the very medicine that heals the world around you. When we step back and view the entire landscape of your current suffering through the magnificent, uncompromising lens of Carl Jung's psychology, a profound and undeniable truth emerges. What you are going through right now is not a mistake, a punishment, or a meaningless tragedy, but a deeply purposeful, intelligent blueprint for your ultimate transformation. Every ounce of the crushing anxiety, the existential emptiness, and the terrifying disorientation you feel is serving a definitive, necessary function in the architecture of your soul. Your persona is cracking to liberate you from a false mask. The law of Enantiodromia is violently pulling you back from a dangerous extreme. Your shadow is breaking through to offer you its hidden power, and the law of individuation is using the heavy hammer of crisis to forge your true, unrepeatable identity. Your mind has engineered this profound breakdown not to destroy you, but to save you from the slow, numbing death of a small, compliant, and completely unfulfilling life. The agonizing suffering you are enduring will not lift by trying to force your way back to the old you, or by desperately patching over the cracks in your crumbling world, because the human psyche never moves backward, it only moves forward into greater consciousness. The path out of the darkness requires you to completely stop fighting the destruction and instead cultivate the immense moral courage to ask the ultimate Jungian question: what does this pain want from me? The moment you stop treating your crisis as an enemy, to be medicated, and start treating it as a fierce, loving intervention from your own soul, the entire atmosphere of your trial undergoes a radical transformation. You step out of the helpless role of the passive victim and step directly into the sacred alchemical fire of your own conscious evolution, knowing with absolute certainty that you are being thoroughly dismantled so that you can finally be put back together as the whole integrated and authentic human being you were always born to become.